are this week at Work the Left Side. I am happy to announce, anybody who knows me knows I was also always an ECW guy back in the day. I'm absolutely popping my tits here. Finally getting to talk to the man himself, Mr. Kid Kash, David Kash. How are we going, sir? You okay?
Doing great, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, man, I'm all good. I'm still buzzing. I'm still walking on cloud nine at the minute. So if I do
myself too.
Gibberish, I apologize. Obviously, yeah, before we start recording, man, you gave me the good news. Obviously, a huge moment, and hopefully, it doesn't make you feel too old.
Oh my, yeah, grandson, man. Met my grandson yesterday. He's 5 days old today. He was 4 days old yesterday. So they live about an hour from me, hour and a half. So I had to drive down, to meet him after all the madness, getting back home and stuff like that, But yeah, beautiful young man, little guy, man. He's got a full head of hair
already. Wow.
Full head of hair, man. He's ready to rock and roll. He came out at 9 pounds 13 ounces.
Wow. So he'll be doing the kid rock impressions before you know it.
Well, the funny thing about it is that my daughter married, well, her man who they had to have my grandson with. His name's Lauren. His father was a big indie wrestler there in East Tennessee, throughout like Kingsport, Elizabeth, and Johnson City area, so he's got it on both sides of the family. He's got me on my daughter's side, and he's got Joey on Lauren's side. So I kind of got this big feeling that if wrestling is still around, that he probably is going to be doing so. Yeah.
No, definitely. And good luck. But obviously, talking about wrestlers, we'll rewind a few years. We'll sort of tick the generic boxes that obviously people always want to know about. Getting into the business. Anybody who's a fan of yours knows your history. Trained by Ricky Morton. Obviously one half of the biggest, the best tag teams in the world. So obviously then he kind of took you under his wing. I know you obviously tag teamed with him a few times, won tag titles with him throughout your career. So yeah, man, it took you a while to kind of get the Kid Kash character. Obviously, anybody knows you, again, I think you also went through about 6 different interpretations, different names. You was even it wasn't
that many. I started off as oddly enough, because I was just a shy guy at first, and didn't know if this thing was even going to kick off, at all. Who knew? So my first gimmick was the Crow. From the movie The Crow. I painted my face up, all that stuff, and it didn't last very long. I think it lasted about a year, but inside that year I probably only had about 5 matches, because in my area where I lived at, where I'm from, I mean, the only wrestling that came there was a local promoter, and he would run a few times a year, and they would be really good shows. He was a good promoter, but he didn't run often like a lot of people do, where they'll run the same town like 3 times a month, or something like that. He didn't do that. He would run that area about 3 times a year, So it really wasn't a lot of wrestling until I actually moved down to Tennessee from Virginia to Johnson City, Elizabeth area, Tennessee. And I did that through Tim Horner and a guy named Brian Logan and Anthony Michaels and stuff. They wrestled for a company called Smoky Mountain Wrestling here in Knoxville, and got in really good with them. And then I hadn't really been trained at that point. I mean, it was just I met some wrestlers at met the Road Warriors and Terry Funk and a couple of other wrestlers that was on one of those big shows that the local promoter had. And I was in the gym working out, and they came in to work out, and we just back then I had a really close resemblance to Owen Hart, and even a little bit to Brian Pillman, a little bit, just depending on whose opinion it was, but I got it a lot, outside of anybody in the wrestling business telling me that. I got it from just people in my hometown thought that stuff, that were wrestling fans. And so they were in there, and one of them, the Road Warrior, Mike, he walked up to me and was like, Jesus Christ, you look like fucking Owen Hart. I was like, yeah, I've heard that before. And he's like, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a, pipe welder, I work for my dad and stuff like that. And he said, well, you look like you keep yourself fit. And I was like, yeah, I do a little bit of bodybuilding here and there. I do martial arts and boxing and things like that. Did you ever wrestle? And I was like, yeah, I wrestled in high school and, and stuff. And he's like, well, we're having a show down here at your local fairgrounds. And I was like, yeah, down at the Speedway. And he's like, yeah. He's like, come down, check it out. He goes, you be my guest. So I went down and I met the actual promoter. His name was Marvin Ward. And then his partner was Preston Fitzgerald, and they had a little school there too, which I found out that night. But yeah, so I just kind of hung out, and hung out in the back and hung out with the guys and Road Warrior Animal. Hawk. I dipped Copenhagen and stuff. I've been doing since I was a kid, and so he's like, oh, "Let me get a dip from your brother." So I gave him my can, and he took the entire can, put it in his mouth, and he's like, "Oh, you coming to the show tomorrow?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he goes, "Yeah, come. You're our guest. Do these. I'll hook you back up. Thank you, man. You're saving my life. That kind of thing." And so the next day I did. I went back and hung out with him again, and he brought me a container. I gave him one dip of a can, and he brought me back 12. Yeah, And we, just got to be really cool and talking and friends. And then Tim Horner and I started talking, and come to find out, we only lived about 3.5, 4 hours from each other, and stuff. And I grew up watching Tim on NWA and Mid Atlantic Wrestling back in the day. That's what I grew up on. I didn't even get WWE until I was in my mid-20s, just in the area that I lived in. So heard about it, never really saw it, kind of thing, but yeah, I was true NWA, old school Crockett Promotions, that kind of stuff. Wahoo McDaniels, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Roddy Piper, all of those guys I grew up watching and stuff like that. So it was really cool. I was hanging out with these guys, and talking to them. And Tim Horner was actually the one who really kind of talked me into, trying it out, and so he's like, yeah, but you're already athletic. You already look good, and stuff. So only thing you need to do is just be shown the basics, and then we'll just take it from there. So I actually joined in on a couple of little training sessions that they had there at my local town, the local promoter one. But those guys were more indie, you know what I'm saying? They were like the independent level. And, even back then I was a wrestling fan, but I knew what was more professional and what wasn't, and if I was going to take this time to do this and get trained, I want to go where I know that there's going to be the best training, So just joined in, and my first day, there was show me how to lock up and I think hit the ropes. And then after that, they just wanted to hit me with chairs, just bashing my head with chairs in my back and trying to slam me on the concrete floor and, try to take a fall and all this other crap. So I wound up talking to Tim Horner again, and I just started driving down to Morristown, Tennessee, did a couple of training sessions with them guys, and went back up to Virginia, and I just already had a gimmick. I just put it together, the crow thing, because I was just shy. I didn't people, especially if I wrestled in my hometown, I'd be a little nervous if people that I went to school with is watching me, and I pretty much suck, that kind of thing, So just wrestling with him, he was like, look, you need to take that paint off your face. You're a good looking guy. You can go a whole lot farther without that shit. And, everybody knows the movie The Crow. So let's just, let's just move forward. So that's when I met Ricky. Met Ricky at an independent show there in Elizabethton, Tennessee. And him and I just really, really hit it off because he saw that I was, talking not like a mark or anything, or not like a student to Tim Horner. He seen that I was, just a guy, and I was just having conversation and stuff. And, and I wasn't marking out and all that other stuff because just wasn't my style, kind of thing. And So him and I just started talking. He liked me, and we just kept having conversation and stuff. And I actually had a match that night, and I didn't know any wrestling moves. I didn't know, other than the lock up and the headlock and hit the ropes. That's about all I knew. I knew how to do the Frankensteiner because I watched, Scotty Steiner do it my entire life growing up. So I practiced it a few times on a trampoline, that kind of thing. So I actually knew how to do that move. And I did that move, and that's what caught his eye. And he goes, "Well, you can't wrestle where the fuck." He goes, "But goddamn, you can jump up in the air a lot, And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I tell you what, he goes, just get in the car with me, come on. And that's what I just started doing. I would get in the car for like a year straight. I just got in the car and just drove to all these shows with him and Robert. And along the way, we would be going to Memphis, and next thing you know, the Bushwhackers would be in the car with us, or Honky Tonk Man, or guys like that, Jerry Lawler, just all these guys. Sid Vicious, rode in the car with him in the back seat a couple of times. Well, yeah, driving my car, but Ricky wouldn't let me drive it. He would drive, and I would sit in the back seat, But for a good solid year, I would watch their matches, carry their bags, set their gimmicks up, that kind of thing, just paying my dues kind of thing. And then at night when we got in the car, whoever was in the car with us, Ricky and those guys would quiz me. What did you see? Did you notice this? Did you see how I pulled the crowd in? Did you see how I sold? Did you see that I didn't just go in and do a bunch of fucking moves? We started it off slow. We started picking it up. We slowed it back down like a roller coaster. You got to be able to get the crowd up, bring them down, get them up, bring them down. There's a concept to this. There's a psychology, So I learned the psychology without wrestling with them for the first year, just driving around in the backseat of the car, and listening and learning and watching and just having great conversations, outside of wrestling, just talking about everyday shit, with, Honky Tonk Man or Sid Vicious in the backseat of the car, rolling joints, and smoking, weed and stuff and drinking a beer, after a show and stuff. But then one night we were in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and Greg the Hammer Valentine couldn't make it. Something had happened, so they needed a replacement. And Ricky was like, "Well, I got my boy right here," And weeks before that, we were driving down the road, and he was like, "Did you ever come up with another name?" And I was like, "No, not yet." And he goes, "Well, don't use that fucking name, the Crow, no more. That's stupid." And I was like, "All right." So we were just coming up with all kinds. And this is like early. This is like 1990. So we're just riding around the road and everything, and then we're coming up with all these names, just going with it. Next thing I know, I look over on the side of the road, and we passed a Jericho Temple Shriners Club, and I just said David Jericho like that, and he says, "What'd you say?" I was like, "David Jericho Cash." He goes, No. Say that again. The first one. I was like, "David Jericho." And he says, "That's got a ring to it. I like that." And he's like, "I like it. Listen to that. That's the one. That's the one right there." So that's how I came up with, the second, name, which the Crow only lasted less than a year, and plus I only had, like I said, probably about 5 total matches under, that gimmick, but then I did David Jericho for a straight 10 years. Until the second run I had with ECW. That's when they changed my name to Kid Kash. Yeah. So I was David Jericho. And when I went there the first time, I was David Jericho. I was back in like 96 to 97. And yep. And if you watch out, if you see any of the matches, I was David Jericho. When I left, I wound up breaking my leg. I came home from my wrestling.
Did you break both ankles? Was that?
No, that was at a WWE event later on. Okay. But this was in 97, and I literally had just gotten home from being in ECW, and I didn't have a contract with ECW at the time. They were just having me wrestle by the night. And I was driving from Johnson City, Tennessee, all the way to New York and to Philadelphia and to Maine and to Massachusetts and driving all these towns. So I drove back, and I got in on a late Sunday evening and stuff. And next thing I know, my phone at home was ringing off the hook. There was a local guy who, one of his stars no-showed and he needed somebody to replace him. I'll take care of you. Just get here. So I just dropped my bags off, grabbed another set of wrestling clothes and took off, and I got there. And next thing you know, I'm wrestling him, the promoter, and we're wrestling in in the fairgrounds, and they're having bull riding the next day. So they packed the field with just all this extra sod dirt, real deep, for when the bull riders get thrown off, they got something to land on. Well, the ring is set in the middle of it. We're walking to the ring on plywood and stuff, and we're having a simple match. There's only about 20 or 30 people in the damn crowd, so we're having a very, very basic, simple match. And I clothesline him. He powders out, then tells the referee, tell him to give me that dive off the top ropes. Well, dumbass me, I'm thinking, I still got that ECW, energy going through me, I guess. I don't know. But instead of saying no, I did it anyway. And when I did, see, back then when I was young, I could get really, really high in the air, and that was the only way I knew how to do it. So I got really, really high. Well, it freaked him out because he wasn't that kind of guy that would normally catch people too much. And so when he did, he just kind of went like that. Well, I went kind of in front of him. I caught his arms, and I prepared to land, but to the top of the dirt. I didn't think about it giving about 5 or 6 inches. So when I extended my leg out to catch myself, which had happened, that had happened quite a few times, up until that point, but I was always able to catch myself. I could see the concrete. I could see the wood floor, that was there, but I saw the dirt. But when I hit and I landed, my foot hit, my leg just kept going into the dirt another 4 or 5 inches. And when it did, my leg just went like that. Yeah, my knee went over top of my toe. So it broke. Yeah, it broke bad. It broke the tibia, the fibula, and there was concrete up under all that dirt. So I jumped up really quick, and I heard a snap, but I thought it was him. I didn't even know it was me because I didn't even feel it break. I just jumped up real quick because I thought he got hurt. And I went to take a step, and there was my foot was pointed behind me, and my knee had went to the side. So I fell, and when I fell, I crashed my knee that was sideways into the concrete, and I shattered my kneecap. So I had to have a knee replacement. I had to have the tibula, metal rod put in my tibula. I broke my ankle too, so I had to have a pin and a screw put in my ankle. And then I had my tibula. The fibula, they really can't do too much with that. It's not even really a balance bone. So it's just kind of there. But I was laid up for, spent the night in the hospital, had surgery that night, got out, and within about 2 weeks, I found an air cast from another wrestler. Yeah. And sawed my cast off, put the air cast on, pumped that damn thing up, and I put my outfit on and went back to work.
Wow.
Yeah. Hadn't even got my stitches out of my knee yet. So I just went, got with Ricky Morton, and we went back to tag teaming, man. He did the work. Yeah. I hobbled in, pop, 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 chop, 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 tag. I could even do the double drop kick, but I practiced in my mind so much that I would leap up in the air with one leg and do like a mule kick. And I would just kick them like that with one foot, keep the other leg up a little bit, boom, not let it hit, and stuff. So, and then whenever I would get up, I would roll to the good side, and get back up. So it was strategic, man. I had to, when I was in ECW, I broke my jaw in ECW, never took a night off.
Yeah, I read about that as well. It's obviously a frog splash gone wrong. Jaw.
300-pound dude, Dup. He came off the top rope with a frog splash and overshot me, and his knees crashed into my face.
That's ridiculous.
Boom. So I went to the hospital that night, and we went through, go ahead, 4 hospitals. There was a flu epidemic going on. Nobody considered a broken jaw a life-threatening problem. You know what I'm saying? So I went to hospital after hospital after hospital. Finally, I got in a phone book. I went back to my hotel room, got in a phone book, and found an orthopedic surgeon in Marietta, Georgia. And it had a 24-hour number. And so I just called it, set up, and about 2 hours later, this dude calls me back, and he was like, if you can be in my office at 6 a.m., I'll hook you up. So yeah, I sat there and just did my thing. And 6 a.m. I got up and drove to Marietta, Georgia. I walked in, gave him a couple signed pictures because he had a bunch of wrestling pictures on the wall that he had worked on. Gave him a couple of signed autographs, and he actually wired my jaw shut and fixed me up for free.
And you were back at work like that night, was you not?
Yeah. I went back to the hotel, took all the packing out of my mouth, took a nice shower, took a nap, woke up, got in a car with Jerry Lynn, went to Cornelia, Georgia, and wrestled in a tag team with him. Went back to Georgia, went back to Atlanta, spent the night, then got in the car, and then drove all the way to Birmingham, Alabama for an ECW pay-per-view.
Because I remember reading about that, and that was one of the points of that was, the fact that you did that, the fact that you was working the next night after going through that was basically just gave you the respect of the locker room, which was like, this guy.
Oh, everybody, yeah.
This guy's like freaking, well, pardon the pun, but he's hardcore. That was the stuff. So
well, and a lot of people too, they knew me really well, knew that my grandmother had like major role in raising me, like mother, like that level. And so we were extremely really close, and she died while I was on the road, and they were going to fly me back immediately. I literally just gotten into I think it was in New Hampshire, Salem, New Hampshire. And literally, so I'm sitting in the back of the car, all upset. My person that was like as close to my mother as you could get was died and stuff like that. And I'm on the road, and she had been sick, and I kept telling her I was going to be, coming to see her, but I was always on the road, the schedule and everything. So yeah, Paul Heyman was like, I got you a flight ready to go. And I'm like, they're not going to bury her until Monday. Well, you probably want to go back and be with your family. And I was like, there's nothing I can do. She's dead. I mean, what am I going to do? And he was like, well, you need to go and be with your family. I was like, no, I need to stay here and work. Please let me work.
Keep your mind busy. Keep your mind busy.
Yeah, well, that impressed him, honestly, so much that that night set me up to win the TV title. Yeah, he was that impressed about it. And, along with the whole broken jaw thing, and stuff like that. So don't know what just happened here. Okay, it's gone. So between the jaw and not taking any nights off, and then, my family member dying, I just said, no, there's nothing I can do. Nobody can do anything. I'll just fly me home on Monday when they're going to bury her, that kind of thing.
Well, backtracking a little bit, obviously you mentioned being in the car with some Hall of Fame names. You got your Jerry Lawlers, you got, like you say, Ricky Mortons, obviously who you was closest with, Honky Tonk Man, just Sid Vicious. Like I said, literally for the first year of your career, I presume you're just a walking sponge of information.
And the second year of my career, I was with Ricky. So the second, third, and fourth year, I was his tag team partner. So, I mean, I did, singles independent stuff here and there, but it was more in the East Tennessee area where I was living. But then I started literally, him and Robert, they would always argue and fight a lot and not talk to each other for months and sometimes years and stuff like that, and so whenever that happened, I would be, that was me. And I was young, and Ricky and I looked a lot alike. We had blue eyes, blonde hair, and we were about the same height and about the same build. So Ricky thought it was funny to tell people that I was his son. And so we were the new Rock and Roll Express. And then, But when I did tag team with him, I was David Jericho. But when I went to ECW the second time, Chris Jericho had already, had done come through and made his mark, and then he went to WCW. So they didn't want to use the Jericho name, so they started coming up with all these other names. So that's whenever they, they started coming up with Davey Morton. So I used that for a couple of shows, and then one day Paul was like, "You know what? I don't like it." He goes, "In my opinion, you two are two separate wrestlers, and you're much more athletic and better. He's a better talker, but you're a better wrestler. And I want to, I want you to, we need to come up with something." And I'm like, "All right, well, I have my son, his name's Tyler. So how about Davey Tyler?" So we used that for a show or two, but then Sandman was using his son, Tyler, in with an angle with Raven. So we were like, "All right, what about, why can't we'll just do Jericho?" Everybody who was here before my injury, and then between that and when I came back the second time, everybody knows me as David Jericho, from the indies to here. Everybody knows. Why don't we just use it? I'll let me worry about it. So I went out and wrestled a match one night, and when I got to the ring, they announced me as Davey Morton Tyler Jericho. A few weeks later, they started tag teaming me with Little Guido. So then they started calling me Davey Paisano, and then I was Davey Morton Tyler Jericho Paisano. And it kind of became a joke because the crowd, when I got to the ring and my name was, called, the whole crowd at one time would be like, "What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?" So it was funny. But yeah, then we, one day I'm sitting in, I had a match with Easy Money, and we tore it down. The one guy, and I've told so many people this. I mean, to each wrestler, there's that one guy. There's that one guy that you trust with everything. You know what I'm saying, in the ring. And the funny thing about it is, if you ever had him and I in the same room, we're absolutely nothing alike at all. We live completely two separate, different types of lifestyles. We think completely different, in every other aspect other than wrestling. We don't agree on anything, nothing political. I mean, anything, nothing. But we have chemistry that no one can touch. Yeah, and I don't know did you ever see the move I used to do? It was called the Rana Bomb, where he would go to power bomb me off the top rope, and then I would cut a hurricanrana. He is the only person that I've ever done that move on, and I would never do it to anybody else. I've had people want to do it in matches, and I said, "No, I don't I don't know you that well. I don't know you. I don't know you're going to not drop me on my head. That's a long way up in the air. It's high in the air. Don't want to land on the concrete floor. Don't want to land 15 feet on my head. I'm just, we'll do something else." But Easy Money is the only one that I would ever do that move with. And we did that move. But, we also just had that great chemistry of putting a match together, move for move. I mean, we just had that and so we did that move one night on TV, and Paul just went fucking ballistic. They never, in the crowd just went crazy shit, got to the back and everything. And he was like, "That was fucking beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I got plans for you. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. We're going to get this, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Okay, great." Following night, in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I'm sitting there, and Tommy Dreamer comes walking through, and he's saying hello to everybody. And he walks by me, and he goes, "Hello, Davey Morton Tyler Jericho Paisano." And I was like, "What's up, Tommy Dreamer? How you doing, buddy?" And slapped hands. He got a few feet away from me, and then he stopped, and he turned around and he goes, "Oh, I forgot, by the way." He goes, "You are no longer Davey Morton Tyler Jericho Paisano." I was like, "I'm not?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Who am I?" He goes, "You are now Kid Kash." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to use my real name." He goes, "Yes, but it's going to be spelled with a K." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, why Kid Kash? He goes, because you look like Kid Rock. And I'm like, who is Kid Rock? He goes, well, I think that you need to look him up, and I think you need to start emulating his look and this and that. So I did. After that night, we went on home, and through the week, I just, studied Kid Rock, So I went to Hot Topics, got me some black pleather pants and some boxer shorts and some, the hat and everything like that, and showed up the very next week. And he was like, wow, we weren't going to bring this out for a couple more months, but I think we can do it tonight, and they did. They announced me as Kid Kash right off the bat, and came out to Ba with the Ba from the and I didn't even pick that song. The sound guy did. He was so excited about the gimmick. And yeah, everybody was really excited about the gimmick because I pulled it off really well. I had the long hair. Yeah. I even, over the week, I let my facial hair grow and had the little, goatee going on and stuff like that. Yeah, everybody was like, damn, y'all look just alike. That's crazy.
That's it. When you look back in hindsight, it was just perfect. It just fit perfectly. It was, perfect for the there and then, like a generational kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just fit, obviously MTV, obviously Kid Rock was huge at the time. And yeah, it just automatic. And you did, like I say, you just managed to, you pulled it off and you looked like.
Yeah, I mean, that's when that his album Devil Without a Cause came out. And man, that was a huge album. That really brought him out. That was his coming out, main album, So, and that was at that time. I mean, that was happening when they put the gimmick on me. He was really busting it. He was really, coming out. So what really topped it off was just that ECW crowd. When we pulled it off on TV, we were at the arena. And that just kind of solidified it for everybody else who watched it, on TV. If the Philly arena pops for it, then everybody's going to pop for it. And they did. And one thing I remember is great memory. When the music started playing, I kind of peeked through the curtains and you can see people like not really knowing who was coming out, but then here I come out, man. And not one single person started shit on it, like those ECW fans, brother. They would shit on you, man. I mean, the first night I was ever in the place, ever, my first match ever there, Tommy Dreamer stopped me and he was like, listen, he goes, this crowd is different. They don't know who you are. They've never heard of you. So they're going to shit on you really bad. Don't think about it. Just keep going. Well, the thing about that is the majority of that crowd and the ECW crowd read the dirt sheets back then. This is before the internet, came, all that. So nobody had cell phones with Google on them or anything like that. Flip phones were just coming out, Yeah. So he's like, don't let it get to you. And I'm like, all right, I won't. I'm all prepared. But as soon as I came out, everybody knew that I was Ricky Morton's partner. So as soon as I walked out, and back then I was still kind of wearing the Rock and Roll Express looking outfits. So as soon as I walked out, the crowd already knew. They were like, rock and roll, rock and roll. So from the first night, they didn't shit on me at all. And then when I went back the second time after the bad injury and everything, and then they put the name on me, they didn't shit on me. They welcomed it, and they were really cool with it. So that right there helped solidify it for everybody else. Yeah. All the other TV, fans watching. So never had a problem with anybody, not digging the gimmick. And yeah, it was good.
Yeah, because obviously, I sort of say it was a different era then as well, and the thing is that ECW fans were renowned for being, Pillman cut that promo, they were the original smart fans. They were the smart marks kind of thing. Yeah. So obviously, yeah, you've got that reputation. You've got that lineage of working with Ricky Morton. Yeah. These guys, well, these fans appreciate the Smoky Mountains, the NWA. So they've got your back. or any
You
kind of
one thing that blew me away, because before I went there, I had done a lot of Memphis TV with Ricky, and I was even doing like a lot of the light heavyweight stuff there, in Memphis, for the USWA. And I had no clue, man. It was like the first night that I was there. We all stayed at the Travel. I don't know if you ever heard about the Travel Lodge, but the Travel Lodge was a staple of that company. That was a big part of that company. So we would go back to the Travel Lodge, and then in the hotel bar there, everybody would be drinking, and all the fucking fans would be there too. I mean, it would be a packed out. And the lady at the hotel lobby said the only time this place sells out is when you guys are in town. That's the only time. But but everybody would be drinking and stuff, watching damn Memphis wrestling, the whole bar. And come to find out, the majority of those wrestling fans that came to the ECW arena, if they weren't there, they watched it every week.
Yep.
So that's how they knew who I was, of course, and then plus the dirt sheets and stuff. It just blew me away that the ECW crowd, who liked it violent and and crazy and bloody and stuff, were all big, huge marks for Memphis wrestling too. It was true.
That's it. I mean, obviously, anybody who's lazy, it's very easy to dismiss ECW as, obviously, just how diverse. I mean, it was, anybody who went through the doors there was kind of like, I don't know, I think Paulie or somebody sort of said in an interview, it's like the rejects, the freaks, they all kind of found their way through ECW. But it wasn't just it's easy for like the WWE fans to dismiss it as being it's that place where they hit everybody with chairs. It's like, some of the best technical matches I've seen have been.
I'll tell you another little story real quick. Until I went there, if you noticed, there was very little selling, especially the smaller guys. They were Ring of Honor, they were Japan, they were hit the ropes, jump, jump, jump. They started and this one particular match really caught a lot of eyes, so it began the first start of my ECW push. They started it with Mike Awesome. Okay, so Mike Awesome had just gotten off the airplane from Japan, and we were in Philadelphia. Not Philadelphia, we were in Pennsylvania, but we were in the Plymouth meeting, I think. So this big, this guy's 320 pounds of not fat at all. He was solid ass muscle and had no idea how strong he really was. Okay, not a clue. Well, one of my very, very good friends was Brian Lee. Do you remember Brian Lee? Okay. Well, Brian Lee was from the Tennessee area. The Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and met him, years ago. So good friends. And he had a lot to do, him and Rob Van Dam had a lot to do with me, signing a deal with ECW, So one night, the first night I ever wrestled Mike Awesome. Now I'm from the South. Everybody that works in that company was from the North. I'm from the South, and regardless of how many high flying spots I do, I'm still gonna try my damnedest to have psychology to this match. So I'm gonna sell, something. First thing he did, and like I said, he just literally got off a plane from Japan, where he would take a guy like my size and kick him. And then when he turned around to do something, like show off to the crowd, that little kid would bounce back up and drop kick him in the back of the head. Okay. Now that's what he was used to. And that's what ECW was used to. So the start of the match, as soon as we go to lock up, he runs across the ring. He boots me really fucking hard. Now, logically, I'm 175, 180 pounds. This guy's 320 pounds. What would really happen if that did happen? So I sold it, what would really happen. And on the video, you watch him, he was ready for me to come back real quick. So he turns around and he goes like this, but then he stops and he realizes that I'm selling it. And he thought he hurt me. He goes, "You all right?" And I was like, "No, man, I'm just selling." He goes, "Oh, you're selling?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, thank you, man." So the rest of the match, everything he did, he had to do half of what he normally did, because everything he did do to me, I sold it like I was going to the electric chair. I mean, and he loved it. Well, I made such I was selling so convincingly that Brian Lee, a guy who's been in the business for quite a while and been a part of the big shows with the Undertaker and all that stuff, would probably know what's real and what's not. Well, he thought that Mike Awesome was just beating the shit out of me. He thought, and it was pissing him off because we're good friends. So there was about to be a little bit of a kind of a standoff there, because at the end of the match, Mike goes walking back through and stuff, and Brian grabs him. He's like, "Hey man, what the fuck are you doing, man? That's a good friend of mine. Why are you beating the fuck?" He said, "Man, I wasn't. I swear to God, I wasn't." Here I come walking in the back. I'm like, "Hey dude, thanks, man." Bam, bam. He goes, "Man, are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He goes, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, don't be trying to be tough now." "I'm not trying to be tough. I'm being serious. I'm fine. I was just selling." He goes, "All that was a work?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "God damn it, man. You had me thinking this motherfucker was beating your ass." And I was like, "No." Raven watched it. Okay. The very next week when we went back to work, I walked into the building, walked into the dressing room, and all of the group of the young guys, like Chetty, Nova, Doreen, Roadkill, all of them, they were all in a class that Raven was putting on from that moment for like weeks and months later. Every week he would have those guys, after they set the ring up and got their, all the shit set up, he would have them in a class watching UWF or mid South wrestling. What's his name? Von Erichs, Crockett, all of these old school matches where the guys were selling and stuff. And he was like trying to show them. I come walking in and I just kind of stood there watching. He goes, "You don't need to be here. You already know how to sell."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. I don't need to." He said, "No, no." He said, "Hell, you're the reason why we're having this class." Yeah.
That obviously, well, firstly, with what Brian said, that's got to be a massive compliment. The fact that, like he wasn't even sure. It's like you managed to sell to such a degree that he thought it was legit.
Yeah.
That's massive, like, confidence. Like, yeah, man,
that was big one. I'll tell you one that got me more than that, because it came from the Road Warriors. And we were doing, I can't even remember where the hell was that. It was just such a long time ago. But we're doing a show. I mean, it was in North Carolina. I do remember that. And it was very much sold out. I mean, it was sold out. And I'm wrestling a guy named Mike Youngblood. And we are putting on, and I was the bad guy. I was the heel. And I'm out there just doing my shit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what I normally would do. And what pisses off people the most, I'm only like 5'9". You know what I'm saying? I'm about 175 pounds soaking where I got a little bit of physique back then and stuff, and I'm just cocky with long hair. That would piss anybody off, especially when you act like you're the best, that kind of stuff. And got some pretty decent little promos you put out there, But I was just working the crowd, just working my style. Tully Blanchard told me before that, whenever I started turning heel and stuff, he told me, he said, "If you're going to be a real heel," he goes, "there cannot be any gray area. You have to be a fucking heel.
right.
Don't look for cheers at all. Your cheers are going to be those boos,
Yeah. I'll just jump in for a second, because I've had this conversation with like other people, and I know there's two different kinds of mindsets when it comes to that. Like if you're working a heel, you don't pop the crowd, you don't do the high spots, like you kind of keep it very basic. You work as a heel, that's it.
Yeah, if you do a high spot, you miss it.
Yeah.
Or they counter it.
Yeah.
But I was doing, and that was the rule that I went by, and I believed in it. So when I got to the dressing room after our match, these guys didn't have to do that. They didn't have to get up from where they were sitting. They literally got up and walked all the way across the room, stood right in front of me, and I thought I was going to get beat up or something because I was tired. I was unlacing my boots, and I looked up, and I seen these two big motherfuckers in front of me. And he goes, Mike stuck his hand down. And he goes, "Kid," he goes, "we only got one thing to say to you." He goes, "We watched your match just now. and you are a credit to your profession. We just had to tell you that. And I was like, wow. I was like, really? Thank you so much. He goes, brother. He goes, that's what the fuck we're talking about. That he goes, if you were a lot, he said, if you were a lot bigger, he goes, I would be requesting to wrestle you. And I was like, damn, okay. He goes, you put that fucking kid over like a goddamn heavyweight champion of the world. He goes, you know, and they fucking hated you. He goes, whenever you got an old man, old farm boy, old man, this guy was like 60s, 70s or something,
Right.
had on bib overhauls. Okay. I gave him so much hell while I was out there wrestling and stuff. I pissed him off so bad that he walked all the way from ringside after the match and met me at the curtain. Okay. He got under the railing and he pulled out a knife and told me he was going to gut me like a deer.
Wow.
He says, call me a son of a bitch now, you son of a bitch. You know?
That's
yeah.
it. I mean,
we had to have security walk out and grab this old 70-year-old man and walk him back to the seat.
But then again, that's heel. That is genuine heel.
Yeah.
I know, again, it's a different era. You know, it's hard to kind of get that emotion from people as much now because everybody thinks that they know so much more.
Smart.
But yeah, it's still doable. You've just got to work a bit harder to sort of do it, I think.
Well, the last, I don't know, probably 10 years of my career, I wrestled 30 years. And the last 10, everybody started changing. You know, the business started changing, getting a little more woke, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, I started getting so much more heat on the internet because I was sticking to my tradition. My belief is this, and other people's that were big time heels back in the day did the exact same thing I did. When I roll in that parking lot, turn the car off, and I grab that bag, I am no longer David Cash.
Yeah.
I am Kid Cash until I get back into that car, shut the door, and turn the car on. So from that moment, I'm Kid Cash even in the dressing room. I've had motherfuckers come want to fight me in the dressing room because they didn't like what I said on a promo before the show. So, you know, we would do promos before the show. A lot of people be standing off or they would listen, you know, watch the monitor or something. And when I was in like TNA, if you watched any of my promos in, I would I would say some shit. You know, I mean, I would.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'd be in the dressing room and overhear some things, you know, here and there. And then when I would do the promo on one particular person, I would say something that I maybe heard, you know. Crowd don't know any different. You know, the crowd doesn't know anything. So I'd go back to the damn dressing room, get ready for my match, and have somebody, hey man, that was really fucked up, man. What the fuck? Why would you do that, man? Why you got to be such a dick, you know? And I'm like, did the crowd pop?
Yeah.
Did they know if that? Do they even know if that's really the truth or not? They have no fucking clue. Yeah, but that's just fucked up. You don't do shit like that. Did it get your emotions going? Yeah, I know because I felt it out there. I felt you beating on me and I started beating on you back and it made it look more real.
Yeah.
Instead of fake. Every time you grab somebody, you're doing a high flying spot or running by them or baseball sliding and, you know, and knocking down pins and shit like that. You know, we were out there making the people believe that we really had heat with each other. That's the psychology. Yeah. But the guys, but the last 10 years, it was just probably, and that's what led me to, you know, to my retirement. I was like, the guys of today are just not getting this. I mean, do I have to conform to them or do they have to conform to what traditional wrestling is?
Yeah.
You know? So I didn't want to have to conform. Everybody else was changing to their standard. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore, you know? And plus, you know, with injuries, you know, bloating up over the years and stuff like that, you know, I couldn't perform, you know, as smooth as I used to be able to, you know, so.
I was obviously, you know, when you was in like WWE, part of the Pitbulls with Jamie Noble, if you watch those matches and then you went back to watch the Kid Kash matches in like ECW and early TNA, it's like you're working smarter at that point. You know, you're a bit older, your body obviously taking a few more bumps.
I was healed though. If you want, even from the TNA run to the WWE run, I was healed the whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go. I mean, you saw me do some high flying moves, but I cut everything back to a minimum. I would, if I had a long match, I would miss one big high spot, hit one, and then miss one. Yeah. And then the rest of it was just meat and potato, beat, stomp, kick, chop, stretch, chokehold, you know, just those kind of things, you know, working the crowd, you know, because when you're a heel, you cannot, I don't believe in that. I don't believe a heel goes out there and is just because you're a cruiserweight, you're a heel though. You're supposed to lie, cheat, and steal to win. You're not supposed to high fly. You know, even if they've seen you do it before, that's how you can grab the crowd. I don't know how many times my signal used to be this right here when I would set up on the top rope and I would do a twisting moonsault. I would leap up, turn around, hit the top rope, do a moonsault. And a lot of times when I turned heel, I would be like ready to that point. There would be lead ups to that. And the crowd would already know the lead up to that move. And I would get right to it. And I would do this right here. And then I would go. And then I would just climb back down real nice and easy. And then I would just go kick the dude in the head, you know, go for a pin and then pull his head up, you know, that kind of shit. Just piss the crowd off.
Again, yeah, it's heel work. It's how it should be. You don't hit the high spots. You don't make them pop for any reason. Like you said, then you miss one, you hit one, you miss one. It's like a shit sandwich. That one in the middle gets forgotten about because you missed two either side of it.
Well, a lot of times that middle one used to start the heat, you know, or that middle one would, you know, kind of knock them back down from a fire up, you know. But then why you already got one guy in there doing high flying moves because he's the baby face. How much of a clusterfuck is it going to be if you got two guys in there and you only got 5 minutes? And that's what a lot of these people who watch TV and watch them wrestling, they don't realize because they're just so captivated by what they're watching. They don't keep up with the time. Yeah. The majority of my matches, I would say 90% of them, while I was in WWE, ECW, TNA, or that little bit in WCW, my matches never went over 7-8 minutes ever. I think I had one 15-minute match, and that was at the Great American Bash, tag team pit bulls against the hooligans. That was semi-main event. Okay, that's the longest match I've ever had on TV. I was the cruiserweight champion of WWE, and the longest match I had was 8 minutes. You know, so people don't realize that when you got a short amount of time, that's normally including entrances and exits. Okay, so you don't have time to get out there, get your shit in, and let him get in. Because a real true professional in this industry looks at it like my job is to make you look like $1 million. Yeah. And your job is to make me look like $1 million. I'm going to put over every single thing that you do to me like I'm going to fucking for life sentence, you know, and everything that, you know, you do, you got to make it look like, you know, you're ready to rule the fucking world, you know, so put it all together and let's make a damn good match, you know, and that's what a lot, you know, it's how it's supposed to be. But I watch nowadays and it's like everything is kind of turned to, you know, like the original Ring of Honor style. Yeah. I liked Ring of Honor, don't get me wrong. Ring of Honor was very entertaining, but I could only watch so much of it because every match was the same. Yeah. I mean, one guy would be out there, do, and then that match would be over with. And the next match, nobody would slow anything down. Nobody would even use a rest hold. You know, I mean, so how can you tell a story if you're just constantly moving, constantly doing a move, constantly kicking out? And that was another thing that got me with, you know, watching the early days of Ring of Honor. I was watching finishing moves get kicked out of twice, and then they would hit it a third time and finally pin somebody.
Yeah.
Or I would see them kicking out of much bigger moves than what their finishing move was. See, some of that just didn't never make sense to me, you know. So, I mean, that's why I was a fan of it. I love the athleticism, but I didn't like the storylines. I didn't like the psychology of it, you know.
For me, obviously, yeah, I'm of that age where I was old enough. I was watching Ring of Honor back in the day. Ring of Honor leveled up when Raven turned up. Very much probably for the same reason, like he was running classes in ECW. He probably sat a majority of them down and explained psychology. And,
oh yeah, I'm sure he did. He was big on psychology.
Yeah.
I hated wrestling, but I mean, he was just a different individual all the way around, you know. So most guys call their matches from start to finish. He liked to call his from finish to start.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so, like, have you ever seen the film Memento? So, like, wrestling Raven was like Memento, basically. You're going backwards.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And it was confusing as shit.
Yeah.
So if I ever did have to wrestle him, I would be like, here's what I'm going to do. You tell me what you're going to do. And then we'll just piece this together and make one match. How's that? He goes, well, come here, sit down and talk to us. I was like, nope, I'm going to talk to you. You're not going to try to brainwash me with all that bullshit. I'm not one of those guys. No. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what you want to do. We're going to mesh them all together and make a match. Okay, I'll see you later. I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Right. Well, as a fan, however he did it, it obviously paid off. I was always a massive mark for Raven as well. Like, just again, the psychology side of things.
Raven was a great influence on a lot of wrestlers back in the day, man. That guy, I mean, I've watched him smarten a lot of kids up. So ECW, TNA, WWE. I mean, I saw him, you know, get with like the younger guys and pull them to the side and critique them and stuff, and then just literally watch them bloom. You know, they blossom after that. You know, so yeah, he had a lot of influence on a lot of guys.
Yeah, it's still got one of the best DDTs in the business as well for me.
Yeah, that snapping DDT. Yeah. I call it the snapping one because he was the only one that ever really put a little hip into it.
That's the one. Obviously you mentioned TNA. I don't know if you're keeping an eye on. Obviously, I've seen your tweet about Mark Haskins and 1PW over here because obviously Haskins has got a thing going against former ECW guys. But the reason I mentioned 1PW is obviously, you know, you've had 4 matches over here at 1PW.
Great company.
Yes, but your boy Lance, Mr. Archer, is tearing up over here now.
I can see that. They are probably one of the smartest things they did was get that man over there. I love Lance to death. I mean, and he was I can't really call him a protege, I don't guess. He was my tag team partner, but they put us together for me to you know, help him along, you know, and teaching, you know, the business and stuff. So hopefully, you know, his time with me was beneficial to him anyway. It looks like it might have been, you know, because he's gotten really good stuff in Japan. I don't know what happened with this whole AEW thing. I don't understand that at all. He should have been the heavyweight champion, you know, by now. I don't get. I mean, that when you bring somebody like him, as talented as he is now, as big as he is now, smart now, you know what I'm saying? He's got it now. And then you put Jake Roberts with him, one of the greatest mouthpieces ever to do a promo to make you scared in your boots just by talking to you. You know? How in the hell are you not putting a strap on that guy? Making him a top runner, making him a feature, a main event. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But like I was telling, I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago. To me, everything is turned NXT.
Yes.
The small guys, you know, which I'm a small guy, so I'm not talking bad about small guys, okay? But I'm saying generally, the small guys, you know, in the bigger companies took the back seat. I get it, okay? But the psychology and the story behind all of this is staring you right in the face. It's slapping you in the face. Why wouldn't you just say, okay, we're going to make this one spot to this one guy? Okay, because he's obviously the biggest guy in the damn company. Okay, so we need to make a spot for him. That way, all these other smaller guys can still shine, can still, run for belts and titles and stuff like that. And if somebody smaller does, which somebody would be smaller to beat him because everybody's smaller than him. But when they do beat him, it'll mean a whole lot more for that character.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, Lance is so big. If I went out there and I watched people wrestle him, I like the fact that he doesn't bump like he used to for small guys. It used to make me so mad. We would tag team together, and I'm like, why did you just take a bump for that guy? Well, we're just working. No. Psychology now. You do not bump. You are too big. If you bump, it's the last fucking move of the match. Okay, that's it. And that's only if you're getting pinned. Okay, one bump, last one. Everything else, you're on your feet. If you do go down, you go down to a knee. So I'm watching these other matches that he's had, and he's done much better with that. But these other guys, to me, are not selling his shit, to their full potential. They're taking a hit, getting up, and I understand that it's a time frame thing. I get it. I was there. You got to hurry up and get your shit, and I get it. But you also, with that, would gain, I don't know about today, but I know in my day, you would have gained more respect from the promoter if you put that big son of a bitch over like he should be, and he'll get you over like you should be, So, I mean, look at me and Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome was 3 times my size, and I bumped my ass off for him every single time. I never beat him. But I became so fucking popular and over because I would stand with that man until the very end. I would let him beat me down like a mud hole, but I would still come back, still have that pulling the energy from the crowd, help me. Nobody does that no more, and it's sad.
That's it. I mean, yeah, because I think losses don't make you look bad. If you lose a match, the fans aren't suddenly going to turn on you. No. If you lose a match against a guy like that, but you give it your all, it's like in anything in life. If the fans, suspension of disbelief, if the fans in that ring can see you in a fight going 100%, you've got their respect. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. And I'm a massive fan of the David versus Goliath psychology. To me, that's wrestling is good versus bad, David versus Goliath. It's all the basics just done right, turned up to 11.
Yeah. I mean, if you can find 2 guys that can actually do it right, there's, then it can be a beautiful thing. It can be a hell of a match. It really can. That's like, I think 1PW is doing a smart thing by pulling him in there. I mean, that guy could really probably be the face of that company. I always liked 1PW. 1PW was very professional. I remember that about them, and they did great shows. I mean, their shows were good. I mean, they would sell out, man. Was it the Doncaster Dome?
Doncaster Dome.
Oh man, I loved wrestling there. Yeah, that was a great place. Yeah,
I was going to
got a lot of heat there.
Yes, because obviously you came with the reputation. It's just no shit. You keep Cash. You say it as you say what you're saying, and the fans will probably, like say, give you the heat, but you've still always got the respect.
Oh yeah, the fans after the shows. I mean, we go around there to the little bar over there. We'd have drinks with the fans. I mean, and they knew. I mean, they knew the fans are not stupid. You know what I'm saying? They're there for the show, though. The ones that are getting involved like that, they legitimately appreciate what you're doing. They legitimately appreciate, the show is even there. They love watching wrestling, and they're wrestling fans. They know the deal. I've been in 1PW before, walked around that damn ring, man, and I've gotten in people's faces and, and all kinds of shit, called them all kinds of crazy names and stuff like that. And, took a girl's camera from her, and took another guy's fucking camera from him. And it's just a big commotion and stuff. But it's going crazy right then. But afterwards, all of those same people are over there wanting to buy you drinks and stuff, and we all just and I drink with them. I'll go over to have a drink with them. We'll sit down, we'll just have a discussion, and talk. And I'm a human being just like they are. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have got paid that night. So
That's it, yeah.
I've always been that guy who appreciated the fans, because the fans are, I mean, bro, if there would not be any wrestling if there was no fans to watch it.
Exactly, that's it. And yeah, obviously 1PW's come back now.
Yeah.
And I've kind of likened Lance in this reincarnation of 1PW to being the next Ulf Herman kind of thing. I can imagine him. Ulf was very much taken to, the fans took Ulf to their hearts.
Yeah.
Just a big guy who kicked the shit out of people. And
Yeah.
I think, as wrestling fans, I think, yeah, the 1PW fans pop huge for Lance when he comes out. And I think we've kind of taken to him as, he's not one of us, but fuck it, he's one of us.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's going to be good for him if they can continue to keep running, which it sounds like that they are. They're going to try to keep it going. Hopefully I'll be able to get over there. I have a real job over here now, and stuff like that. So I've been in the construction life since I was a kid, so I'm a project superintendent. We build like high rises and skyscrapers and, big, $300 million buildings and, those kind of things. So a lot of my time, is taken up, so we're going to plan, a trip on into the, hopefully by the end of the year anyway, so I'd love to come and wrestle the dude, man. I'm very impressed with him. I've always liked him. I always thought he was going to do Mark Haskins. I always thought he was going to, he did Ring of Honor for a while, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah. Fought Bubba at Madison Square Gardens, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he sort of had a match feud with Bully Ray. And wrestled Madison Square Gardens. When I spoke to him, that was like, the highlight, just, he mentioned just being, in the
brother, I've wrestled in Madison Square Gardens, man. It's, to me, Madison Square Garden and down in Memphis at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Right.
Those were the two buildings that I always dreamed of wrestling in, and I got to do it. So it was really, really, really cool. Yeah. Madison Square Gardens gives you chills on.
I mean, as a fan, I can't even imagine. But it looks, obviously there's bigger arenas or there's bigger venues. It looks really enclosed. To a British fan watching wrestling, and we see the Garden. I kind of see it. It looks like one of the smaller venues, but apparently it's just like the Mecca. It's just the place.
I think it only holds about 10, 15,000 people. It doesn't hold there's not a 20,000 seater at all. But yeah, it's a bowl when you're in it. It's like a bowl. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it gave me chills whenever I was there. Yeah.
Nice. So obviously, you mentioned that. You said you've obviously continued. Well, I'll kind of touch more on the personal side. You said about work. The one thing that got me was on one of the other interviews that I watched was you said even when you was working in WWE, you were still union by this point.
Yeah.
In like what you was doing, and you do your WWE stuff, and then you'd like fly out that night, to get back onto your 9 to 5, I presume.
No, that was my 12 to 15 hour days. Yeah.
Gosh, you fucking hell, Jesus. Yeah. So, but you're still doing that whilst being, Yeah,
I would. I'll give you an example. I had just won the cruiserweight title in the WWE at a pay-per-view. Okay. The very next morning, I fly home. Well, actually, I flew home that night. I'm the cruiserweight champion of the World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment. I leave early. It was a big pay-per-view, so everybody else was going home, going out to have a good time, have a few drinks, stuff like that, collaborate. I got on a plane, flew straight back to Nashville, Tennessee, rushed home to get into bed, threw my belt in the corner on a chair, went to sleep, got up the next morning, took a shower, got dressed. I was on the job site at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I was tying rebar, building a runway at B&A Airport in Nashville. And I did that for 12 to 15 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. And then on Thursday after work, I would already be packed and ready to go. I would run into the bathroom there at work and I would wipe down, clean off really quick, change my clothes into my sweatpants and stuff like that, my travel wear attire. And then I would boom. And one thing that was really cool about it is at that time I was working at the airport because it took about a year to build that runway. So for a year, and I was still with WWE, every Thursday, I would already be parked. The only thing I'd do was walk over to my car, grab my bag, clean up a little bit, then go on over to the terminal, get on a plane. I'd fly to the first city. Next morning, we would wrestle. Next day, we would wrestle. Sunday, sometimes we would do 2 shows. We would do a morning show and an afternoon show. Yeah. So I did that for 28 years.
I am. That's
Yeah, because there's no insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. A long, long time ago when I was in ECW and I broke my leg. Remember when I told you I broke my leg, right? I had insurance. I was registered under an independent contractor. Okay. Which are an independent contractor. The insurance company didn't ask me what I did for a living. They just, so I filled it out. They didn't ask any questions and I took it. And I had that insurance for a couple of years. But then when I broke my leg and I was in the hospital, I showed up in my wrestling outfit, my wrestling boots and all that other stuff. So they took all of that off of me, and in their report, they put that in there to the insurance company. Well, the insurance company was asking questions about what this weird outfit was, these weird boots that they had to take off of me. And I literally had just had surgery from all of this. And I'm laying in my bed. I'm laying in my room, and about 6 a.m. in the morning, a lady is tapping me on my head, asking me questions, and I'm under anesthesia and all this other stuff. So, of course, she's asking me about the outfit and the boots, and I confirmed that was a professional wrestling outfit, which I shouldn't have done, but I was under anesthesia, which is true serum, really. And so I go on back to sleep, and a couple hours later, they wake me up for breakfast. And while I'm about to take my first bite of breakfast, the lady comes back in and asks me to sign this piece of paper. And I was like, what is this? And she goes, oh, it's just a statement saying that your insurance has canceled you. I was like, my what? He goes, yeah, they canceled you about 10 minutes ago. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. So I had about $100,000 hospital bill that I had to pay for because my insurance company dropped me. So I was actually with I was just fresh with the union at that time. I just really started. So I waited a couple of years and I got vested into the union. I kept working for them. And once I got vested, I was able to get the insurance. So throughout my whole entire wrestling career, I had insurance, real insurance, outside of wrestling. Now, when you work for WWE, WCW, ECW, TNA, if you get hurt on the job, then they pay for it. TNA doesn't, and neither did ECW, but the other companies did. So you needed insurance because you're getting hurt a lot. So I kept that for the insurance, and then guess what? Well, wrestling was going to end at some point. Yeah. Where's the retirement in wrestling unless you work for Vince McMahon for 20 years? Yeah. Now, if you work for Vince McMahon for 10 to 20 years, yes, you have a retirement. But if you've only worked for Vince McMahon from 1 to 5 years, you do not have a retirement. Okay. You made a lot of money, but you also had to pay a lot in taxes because the more you make in the money with the merchandise sales and stuff like that. Yeah. My contract was like $150,000 for a year, but my merchandise at the end of a year would equal up to about $500,000. Okay. The insurance, I mean, the taxes you pay on that, bro, you make $500,000, you only put probably 150,000 in your account.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Put you in a completely different tax bracket. Okay. And then not to mention your yearly, that's taxed out. The $150,000 over here is taxed pretty hard. So $150,000, I'm only really bringing home probably about $90,000. You know what I'm saying?
35%, 40%.
Like 35%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if you make a certain amount more than that, it goes up to like 40%.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, if you make over $250,000, it goes up to like 39-40%. If you make more than $400,000, it goes up to like 55%.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
thankfully, obviously, you knew what you was doing. You had this thing for.
Oh, it
I
was
mean,
hard. Do you trust me
oh,
when I tell you this? I did not want to go to work when I just got power bombed through fucking 5 tables. You know what I'm saying? That
yeah,
was the last
yeah,
thing I wanted to do. But I knew that I had to do it because where was I going to be if I did get really hurt bad and I couldn't wrestle anymore? You
yeah.
know, that's the chance that a wrestler takes every single night that he gets in a ring. And it doesn't have to be a big move. I've
Oh, no.
seen people hit the ropes and destroy. Rick Rude hit
Yeah,
the ropes. Dynamite Kid hit the ropes. Their careers were over. Their backs were never the same.
it's
You
crazy
know,
when you think about it because again, from a fan's perspective, obviously, we had it built into us, by commentators and other people, that they're called ropes, but they're just more like fucking steel wiring kind of thing than ropes, and that shit
yeah,
hurt. So yeah, even just running the ropes is,
yeah.
a risky business.
You just hit that disc in the wrong place.
Yeah.
That's all it took. I mean, Rick Rude, he took a bump out, but his lower back hit the apron, you know, and it just destroyed his L6 and 7. I mean, just blew him completely out. My L4 and 5 are bone on bone. I have to go get my back fused now, but I'm waiting till next year to do that because I just had a hip replacement. I had another knee replacement, and I got to have both of my rotor cuffs fixed. So then I'm going to go get my back done. So
At least you got
yeah,
insurance.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now that I'm and once I retired from wrestling, I retired from the union too. Okay. I had 28 years in the union. I vested, so I got a retirement of $2,500 a month for the rest of my life when I retired, and I got unlimited insurance for the rest of my life too. Now I'm with a company now that pays me a pretty good salary. You know what I'm saying? And I just bumped up from superintendent to project manager. That's why I was supposed to come over and wrestle Mark a couple months ago, I thought, or a month or so ago, and I had to cancel because I just got promoted, so now I'm taking all these classes until August, to make me an official project manager. So that's going to bump me up even more. My insurance is gold level. Okay, I got a retirement plan here. I got a retirement plan with the union. The money that I did make in the WWE and all those, I got what's left of that put back, which, about 100 grand. I mean, but it's just sitting there gaining interest is all it's done. So, yeah.
So,
So
well,
I just watch all these. When I was younger, I would be in the dressing room with Ricky. I would be in the dressing room with all these other guys. Terry Funk was one. I loved Terry Funk so much, but I would watch that man try to get up off the floor. I would watch him try to stand up straight. I would watch Greg Valentine trying to get up off the floor. I would watch, all these old timers back in the day, that I was in the dressing room with, trying to get up off the floor, trying to tie their boots, you know. Uh, it just like, what are you doing now? Why are you here at 60 years old? Why are you wrestling? You don't need to. What happened? Well, come to find out that the majority of all these people thought that they were going to get another run.
yeah.
And some of them still think they're going to get another run. As Ricky Morton, as much as I love that man like my father, I feel real, I love him and I'm always going to be there for him. But when he can never do it again, he's got nothing to do. He has nothing to fall back on, period. He never tried another occupation. He only knew wrestling his entire life.
That's it, man. I think you're definitely a smart cat within that business to have that sort of to fall back on.
It even drew me to college, So while I was, working for the union and stuff, I got to thinking, shit, after all this superstardom and all this money making in wrestling, does this mean I still got to go back and break my fucking back in the field again? And I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know what I need to do? I need to get a degree. So I started going to online college and stuff, and then going to Middle Tennessee State University there in Nashville, well, Murfreesboro. And I got a business and marketing degree. And so, and then I turned it into a construction management degree.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got that construction management, I pinned that sumbitch up on my damn resume, and things just changed overnight. I'm telling you, I handed it into the union, and I was like, this is my new resume. So they started looking over. It's like, you got a construction management degree? I was like, yeah. He's like, you got any OSHAs? And I was like, well, yeah, I took the classes here at the union. So I got all my OSHAs. I got OSHA 50. How many people have OSHA 50? That's a big deal,
Right.
Yeah. And I got every bit of certifications, first aid certifications, every lift that's on a job site, every, piece of equipment over the years. I got every single one of those certifications. And now I got this, construction management degree. Dude, the very next job I got called for was for a fucking superintendent.
Nice.
My pay completely changed. My insurance changed. Everything changed at that moment. And that's where I've been ever since. And I was still literally, I was in the WWE while they were setting the ring up. I was sitting in the stands doing homework on my laptop.
But that's smart. That's just smart. That is, like I say, you don't want to be one of those guys, not to besmirch anyone, because people, you've got to get paid, but you don't want to be on the tours in your 50s or your 60s, sat in your boots, sat in your gear, taking photos with fans at a mall or something. That's got to be sort of like,
to me that would just degrade my career. I don't see myself doing that. I don't want I've been away from it. I mean, every now and then I go do a little something here and there, at a show or something. But for the most part, I spend my time at work or at home, and with the family kind of thing, and I really like it. For 30 years, I was on the road, bro. For 30 straight years, I was on the road. I didn't get to go to cookouts. I didn't get to go to birthday parties. I didn't get to go to my own daughter's birthday party, because this shit was on the weekends, and I was on the road wrestling on the weekends. I was touring for months, those kind of things. And I missed out on so much shit. And then whenever I retired and I started, one of the first things I did was I just had a cookout.
Yes.
I just
invite everybody.
I just invited some people over, got some beer and had some steaks, and we just cooked out. And I was just like, wow, this is fucking awesome, man. This is great. I don't have to get up and go anywhere. I don't have to fucking be tired as shit for living off of 4 hours of sleep and then have to go get on a fucking airplane.
It's stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, speaking from a fan's perspective, we know, we hear, it's long weeks, it's long hours, it's long days, but it's the little things like that you guys miss out on. When you first had a chance to do that, it must have literally just been like sitting down. You must have just had like a big Cheshire Cat smile on your face. Like, yes, all right, this is it now.
I remember in the 30 years that I was a wrestler, I remember it was either 5 or 6 straight years, straight in a row, 5, 6 years straight in a row that I didn't get to go back and see my family for Christmas because I was on the road. Because way back then, like in the 90s and stuff, that's whenever the biggest shows were. Christmas night, New Year's Eve, those kind of things. So while everybody's celebrating Christmas, I'm over in England, or I'm over in Japan, or I'm over somewhere else in the country. While my family's eating Christmas dinner, I'm getting ready for a show, and I remember 5, 6 years straight that I didn't get to go back home to see my mother, my family, my father, and that's what wrestling, you gotta, if you're going to make it, I guess. I'm not really too much sure about how it is today, but I know in my time that if you were going to be that guy that made the 1%, there's only 1% of wrestlers in the world that are on television. Okay. So that just gives you an idea how many wrestlers there are in the world. Yeah. Okay. If you're going to be that one special guy, just like, that group of people, then you have to give this sport your life. You really do. And I did. Now I had my construction life on the outside of it, but I had to make it that way.
Yeah.
You know, I could have been like everybody else. I could have just accepted that weekly paycheck and those royalties and just lived like a fat cat, just spend the money, you know, but eventually that job was going to end. I'm a cruiserweight, man. I'm not John Cena. I'm not the Undertaker. I'm not Stone Cold. I'm not weigh 250 pounds. Okay. I'm a little guy. I'm not going to be there that long. So I had to make a career of being in intricate places here and there. If you watch my career, I was in ECW, I was in WCW, TNA, I was in WWE, I would go to Japan, spent a lot of time in Europe, over in England, different places, Ireland, Switzerland, places like that, you know. So, I mean, I wasn't going to be that 10-year guy. I'm not Rey Mysterio. I'm not that one guy.
Yeah.
You know, they handpicked Rey, you know, I would almost assume because of Eddie, you know, to be that standout cruiserweight that could win the world title. You know, that kind of
merch as well, possibly. I would say the mask sells a lot of merch.
Oh, that mask. Yeah, that man has probably made mega millions just off of that mask merchandise, bro.
Right, we kind of obviously got lost in like, well, talked about the union and everything like that, but you did touch on something which I'm going to rewind quickly, and I'll let you go at some point, I promise. But you mentioned about Mark Haskins and that you was meant to be over here, so it has been talked about.
Yeah. I talked to Steve Gauntlet about, and I have an agent over there, Dan White, and yeah, Dan's my man. I love him. Dan. Dan's my boy. I gotta say, he's probably one of the best men I know. You know, a little questionable to other people, but to me and him, wonderful friendship. But yeah, we had talked to Steven briefly about coming over. I think it was in June. Did they just have a show?
Yes, they did. We just had one in Lincoln. Yes,
I think they wanted me.
Lincoln.
Yeah, I think it was a June show maybe, and they wanted me to wrestle Mark and stuff. And I was initially going to do it, but whenever I went back to work the following week, I was told that I was getting the promotion and stuff. So I had to start taking my classes. They wanted me to start taking them like now, so I can be ready for they got a big, like $250 million project building to start in August, and they want me to be running. So I have to have all these certifications done by then, you know. So that would, you know, that just kind of put me on hold there. You know, I can't fly over for, you know, a couple of days and stuff like that. I gotta be here.
Priorities, you know, this is where you better you got big priorities.
But
obviously,
but it's like I explained to him, once all of that's over and I get the building running, you know, a couple of good months to where I could take 3 or 4 days to fly over and come back, you know, because it takes, I mean, it's 2 days just in flying, you know.
Well,
so
again, I don't know if you're keeping in kept to the loop, but yeah, the June show was in a place called Lincoln. There was meant to be a show in August at the Dome, but that's been shoved back to October. So they're running 2 shows in October, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, both at the Dome. So if you're coming over, you might as well get a double payday.
Hey, well, if the project that I'm going to be on can allow that, I would definitely be there. I do plan to come before the end of the year if they do run something more towards, you know, the end of the year and stuff. So
I think it's 26th of October.
Okay.
It's two shows. Yeah, one in the afternoon. The August show is going to be on in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And the other show is at like 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So it's 2 3-hour shows in one day. So yeah, double payday.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I just like to get back over there. I just always loved England. You know, I stayed with Dan. Can't tell you how many times whenever in Leeds, you know, whenever I would come over, I'd stay for a month at a time. And I know I probably did that trip at least 5 or 6 times, you know, staying a month here, a month there, you know. I loved it. Leeds is great. I like Leeds.
I live in Leeds. Yeah, that's where I'm based.
Yeah, Leeds. I love Leeds, man. Remember I fell in love with that place called Bagel Nash.
Yes.
Back on is it still going?
It's by the train station, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I've actually been in the city centre for a couple of years, but
Yeah,
yeah,
there was one that was like literally right down the street from Dan's flat, and we would like walk down there every day, and they would flip out because I'm an eater, you know, and I like to eat, so I would have them make me a bagel sandwich that was about that big, you know. Yeah, have so much meat on it, you know. And the lady would always be like just amazed every time I walk in. She goes, "I cannot believe one human being can eat all of that."
Yeah, I've just got like Scooby Doo image, yeah, just like a massive Scooby Doo sandwich, but in the form of a bagel.
Yeah, we call them Dagwood sandwiches.
That's it.
Dagwood.
Yeah, I used to work with Dan, so I know Dan pretty well. That's how we kind of stay in touch. So yeah, but yeah, man, that's well, fingers crossed. You know, you do make it over. If it is for October, even better. You know, we'll get to you in action twice. Yeah, dude, there's a million other things I could talk about, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. If it does get announced that you're coming over, we'll chat again at some point.
Absolutely.
And Dan will be happy. He's got a shout out, so he was asking for a shout out.
My boy Dan. Yeah.
But thank you so much for chatting.
Pleasure.
Seriously, there's a million other things I could talk about. We'll leave myself.
I'll do it again, man.
Yes,
just have to do it again.
Socials. Do you want to how overly active you are on there? Obviously, I've mentioned doing a lot of stuff recently.
I mean, I'm 53 years old. I work so much. I have a Facebook, I have an Instagram, but I really don't, jump on there that often anymore because I'm just so just busy, man.
Fine. But anybody who's interested, obviously, in following you on Twitter, obviously when this episode drops, I'll be mentioning you. I'll be posting highlights over the next few days. So I am going to spam your Twitter. Unfortunately, I apologize in advance. But if you want to follow Mr. Kid Kash, obviously do so on Twitter. And then, if you want to keep your eyes peeled on what he's doing in the future, it's the place to look. And so, dude, generally, as trying not to mark out too much now, because obviously, trying to remain cool, trying to be calculated. But thank you, genuinely as a fan and just as somebody who likes to talk about wrestling. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure, man. You do it. Call me anytime, man. We'll do it again.